Baby animals, modular building, new terrain tools, deep water, low fences, statues, waterfalls, walking pterosaurs, Guanlong, protoceratops, and rocks. So many beautiful, beautiful rocks. I was getting emotional watching the announcement trailer and seeing all of this stunning rock work. It's safe to say I am very excited for Jurassic World Evolution 3. I cannot wait to build in this game and see what we're capable of creating. Sorry this video is so late. I have a pretty demanding full-time job, but I really wanted to talk about and speculate about this game now that it's been announced. With the announcement of Evolution 3 and all of this information that's come along with it, I only have one concern so far, and that's the roster, which is what we're going to be focusing on in this video. Jurassic World Evolution 2 ended with 122 prehistoric species in the game. I would know because I ranked every single one of them. Jurassic World Evolution 3 is launching with 82 species, which includes new additions to the roster. That means over 40 species have been cut from the base game and are not being carried over from Evolution 2, at least at launch. I want to get into what I think this means and what I think those species are. As disappointing as it may be, it does make sense to me that they'd cut some species when they're giving most of them babies and presumably all of them a second model with sexual dimorphism. That's a lot of work, not to mention the new animations to go along with all these new models and the many other crazy new features being added that they likely prioritized. Plus, I do suspect this game had a pretty quick turnaround since Jurassic World Rebirth had a pretty quick turnaround, so it does make sense that some species would be left out. I'm most surprised by just how many have been cut. The game is launching with 82 species, which is 40 less than the 122 we ended the second game with. This number is confirmed to include new species, but of course we don't know exactly how many new animals we're getting. If I've counted correctly, Evolution 2 launched with 15 new species in its base game, 4 land species, 6 lagoon species, and 5 aviary species, not counting the Pteranodon, which was technically carried over from the first game. I do not expect Evolution 3 to launch with 15 new species. The bulk of those were for the introduction of lagoons and aviaries, so that we'd have a decent selection of animals for both new types of enclosures, with 6 each in the base game. Evolution 3 doesn't need to do that this time around, so for new species coming to this new iteration of the game, instead of 15, I'd guess 6 to 8. Probably 4 land species again, but only 1 or 2 lagoon species and 1 or 2 aviary species. For the sake of this video, let's suggest 6 of those 82 species are new. That would mean out of the 122 species Evolution 2 ended with, only 76 have been brought over to the base game for Evolution 3. That would mean 46 species have been cut, or at least around that number, like I said, maybe give or take 1 or 2. You may be wondering about the new rebirth species like Titanosaurus and Aquilops and the D-Rex. I think if rebirth content were part of the base game, it would have been teased in the announcement trailer. We had expected the story and scope of Evolution 3 to reflect the new movie, but that doesn't seem to be the case at all. They're still rolling with the dinosaurs in our world status quo of Dominion. There is no link to Rebirth present in any of the marketing so far for Evolution 3. I think content from the new movie will come in a DLC, not long after the game's launch, probably a Jurassic World Evolution 3 Rebirth expansion. We could debate what we think about that in an entirely separate video, but for now, all of this to say, for this video, I believe around 46 species from Evolution 2 have been cut. This is not definitive, this is just my educated guess based on all of the factors I just rattled off. So, if not every Evolution 2 species is included in the base game for Evolution 3, how will we get them? I do expect us to eventually see all 122 species back in Evolution 3 at some point, or at least I would assume so, since Frontier already have the models left over from the last game, and you know people are going to be complaining and begging for their favorites to be added back in as soon as the game launches without them. I suspect all 122 will eventually come to the third game, but again, that's not a guarantee, and even I'm very unsure about it. The Evolution 2 roster was admittedly a bit bloated, so I could see them genuinely dropping some of these animals because they feel unnecessary. We don't need 3 small Chinese stegosaurids, but again, you know those are somebody's favorites, so I don't think the community will stop pestering Frontier until they're all back in the game. You have to ask though, by what means will all of these species be reintroduced to Evolution 3? I fear the Deluxe Edition gives us a good idea. The Deluxe has 4 species, and yes, this is where we're getting Guanlong and Protoceratops, 2 animals I've brought up in my own wishlist videos, and 2 designs that I absolutely love. I think Frontier knocked it out of the park with these 2 species, I can't praise them enough. However, the other 2 species are Concavinator and Thanatos Dracon, of course 2 returning animals from Evolution 2 DLCs. I'll rip the band-aid off now. I think most of the cut species will be sold back to us in DLCs, which will feature a mix of new species and returning species from the previous game. I wouldn't have thought Frontier would sell species back to us after the negative response to the Secret Species pack, but it's looking pretty likely to me. I could see dinosaur packs for Evolution 3 having 4 species, 2 of which are brand new, and 2 of which are returning from the previous game. Let's say that hypothetically after a Rebirth expansion, all following DLCs are dinosaur packs. Out of the 46 cut species, 2 are already covered in the Deluxe Edition, so that's 44 left to cover with 2 per pack. That means it would take 22 dinosaur packs to get back every species cut from the Evolution 2 roster, 23 DLCs overall, including a Rebirth expansion. I don't think this roadmap is realistic. Planet Zoo has been receiving support since 2019 and is just now hitting its 20th DLC. That took 6 years for Planet Zoo, and I think over 6 years is too long to wait just to get back all of the species from Evolution 2 that you could argue should have been in Evolution 3 at launch. I don't work in game development, but I'm pretty sure over 6 years of DLC is too far to plan in advance when you don't even know if your game will be successful in the first place, or if the community will buy your DLCs. I think Evolution 3 will be successful, and to be clear, even if they do this, I will still buy every DLC because I need every species that's offered. It's basically a requirement for me as a completionist kind of person. I'll buy these resold animals, even if I'm a little annoyed while I make that purchase. As I was saying though, planning a roadmap this far in advance is very unrealistic, and another point I have is I don't think some of the cut species are DLC worthy. DLC animals are supposed to be highly requested fan favorites or really interesting and unique picks. Players are supposed to feel excited by the thought of having them in their game. I could see Frontier reselling something like Eutyrannus, but not something like Polacanthus or Gigantspinosaurus, you know what I mean? Those would be, quite frankly, lame DLC animals. So this is my theory. I think the heavier hitters that have been cut will be resold to us in DLCs. I think we'll get dinosaur packs for Evolution 3 that have 4 species, 2 new and 2 old. For the less exciting species that have been cut, I think, and I would hope, Frontier will give them back to us in free updates. Maybe 2 per update. Hello park managers, here's update 1.4 with various bug fixes. Now you can change the color of your water, and this update also introduces the Hoyangosaurus and Marodactylus. That's kind of what I'm expecting, and that way, with a mix of returning species in both DLCs and free updates, we'll get them back a bit quicker than if they were exclusively in DLCs. People will be slightly less annoyed that way. The conversation will be, yeah, it kind of sucks I have to buy some of the cooler ones again, but at least they're giving us some for free. Maybe this is wishful thinking. Again, I have no experience in game development, and so many species have been cut that even this would take a long time for them all to be brought back. Maybe they'll come up with some other solution, but I think reselling all of the cut species is asking a bit too much of your players who have already expressed frustration to you when you did it last time. Hopefully, quite a few of these cut animals will come back to us in the free updates for Evolution 3. That's my stance and my speculation on how Frontier will handle the species that have been cut. But what are the species that have been cut? You know I love making random lists and name-dropping animals, so let's talk about this. To start off, what species do I think are safe? Confirmed so far through footage or the website are T-Rex, Velociraptor, Triceratops, Brachiosaurus, Parasaurolophus, Gallimimus, Dilophosaurus, Stegosaurus, Pteranodon, Spinosaurus, Mosasaurus, Indominus Rex, Baryonyx, Carnotaurus, Allosaurus, Quetzalcoatlus, and Geosternbergia. Essentially confirmed through statues are Ankylosaurus, Megalodon, which is seen in a screenshot for the Clark County scenery coming in the deluxe edition, and Dunkleosteus, which has been spotted on some abstract art. Let's talk about what animals I personally think are safe. I would really hope that all 39 movie species are included in the base game. They should be top priority, in my opinion. We've already covered a bunch as confirmed, so there are 22 movie species left. Those are Compsognathus, Pachycephalosaurus, Mamenchisaurus, Corythosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Apatosaurus, Dimorphodon, Sinoceratops, Stygimoloch, Indoraptor, Nasutoceratops, Dreadnoughtus, Giganotosaurus, Therizinosaurus, Pyroraptor, Dimetrodon, Morocentrapidus, Iguanodon, Atrociraptor, Lystrosaurus, Oviraptor, and Microceratus. If any of these guys are cut, I would be pretty baffled. Then again, it did take until a community request DLC for us to finally get Microceratus last time, so I worry maybe even film species aren't sacred, but I would really hope so. I'm counting them as in. If a species has been included in Camp Cretaceous, that also counts as being on screen, and so I would hope our 7 Camp Cretaceous animals are also safe. That's Monolophosaurus, Oranosaurus, Kentrosaurus, Nothosaurus, Tarbosaurus, Spinoceratops, and Scorpius rex. I could maybe see them yanking away all the Camp Cretaceous dinosaurs and reselling them to us in a dedicated Camp Cretaceous expansion. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I think it's a possibility. Still, Frontier showed dedication getting us every on-screen species in the franchise, including Camp Cretaceous, with the exception of Smilodon. So even though I think there's a chance for an all-encompassing Camp Cretaceous DLC, right now I'm counting them as in. We'll talk about chaos theory a little later when we dig into what animals I think have maybe been cut. Still covering what I think is safe, or at least should be safe in my opinion, we also have the remaining species from Jurassic Park Operation Genesis. The Evolution games are spiritual successors to Operation Genesis, and it was really exciting when the first Evolution finally added in all of the original JPOG species. I would hope all 9 of these guys are also safe to maintain that identity as a spiritual successor. So that's Acrocanthosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, Albertosaurus, Camarasaurus, Edmontosaurus, Torosaurus, Styracosaurus, Dryosaurus, and Homalocephaly. I think this is pretty wishful thinking, and in reality, these guys are probably far from safe, but I would love for Frontier to maintain the JPOG roster, so I'm counting these guys as in. Altogether, that is 58 species, both confirmed to be safe and that I would hope are safe in the eyes of Frontier. I think they're the most necessary inclusions for the base game. I want to emphasize though that honestly, everything's on the table for being cut. This is all entirely speculation and wishful thinking. Okay, as I said, I think about 46 species have been cut. I've gone through the Evolution 2 roster and have compiled some that I think reasonably could have been cut, with reasonably in heavy quotation marks. It was only easy picking like 5 of these, and for the rest, it really hurt my soul to think about not having them. Most of these I've organized in a sort of tier list based on how upset I'd be if they were cut. Kicking us off, confirmed to be cut from the base game, are of course Concavinator and Thanatos Dracon. These are some pretty popular species, so I do fear the implications for what other fan favorites they may have cut with the intention to sell them back to us. But let's look at the probably tier. I think these species have probably been cut, and I'm not terribly upset about it. For many of these, they're just generally not popular with the community because they feel redundant compared to other species in the game, or there's something about the design that players find off-putting, again, generally speaking. This guy is literally the thumbnail of this video. I am confident that Deinonychus has been cut. It's my least favorite species in the game. I don't like this design. Based on the designs we got toward the end of Evolution 2, and even based on the new Guanlong and Protoceratops, Frontier really seems to be going in a more paleo-accurate direction because that's what the community responds really well to. In the era of Utahraptor and Guanlong, we gotta get this Deinonychus out of here. For Deinonychus and some of the other species in here with criticized designs, I'm hopeful Frontier gives them back to us with some updated redesigns like they did with Ankylodocus. I know some would miss the tadpole Deinonychus, but not me. Good riddance. Other probable cuts are Gigant Spinosaurus and Huayangosaurus. I find them forgettable, and I don't think they offer much when we have Kentrosaurus and Chungkingosaurus at our disposal, which, yes, I decided to keep because I love Chungkingosaurus. If put in a DLC, this would be the second time Huayangosaurus has been resold to us, but I think it's because they know it's a redundant species. Ideally, it would come in a free update to minimize community frustration. I think Polacanthus and Nodosaurus might go, and we'll just keep Sauropelta. I think they'll cut Syntausaurus and probably Muttaburrasaurus and even Maiasaura, since we do have quite a few ornithopods and these are the less popular ones. Archaeornithomimus will probably go, since we don't need 3 of these guys. We have Gallimimus and Struthiomimus, and I think we'll lose Dracorex for the exact same reason. We already have Pachycephalosaurus and Stygimoloch. Chasmosaurus and Pentaceratops might get dropped to slim down on the ceratopsids. I think Marodactylus is gone, probably Sierradactylus. They're on the more forgettable end of the pterosaur spectrum. Barbarodactylus might go, since that's another one that could really use a redesign in my opinion, and Elasmosaurus is in the same boat. I know people don't love its design. Alright, next is the maybe tier, where I'm like, maybe these could go, but it's starting to sting a little. Proceratosaurus might get cut because of the introduction of Guanlong, which is basically just a feathered Proceratosaurus. Megalosaurus is pretty basic and not that popular with the community, even though I quite like it. Metriacanthosaurus, I think, is often forgotten and might go because of that, although I do love this design and it's a Jurassic World website creature. Metri, if you've been cut, I'm sorry I failed you. Werasaurus isn't a necessity when we have Stegosaurus and Kentrosaurus and Chungkingosaurus. Maybe Euoplocephalus, since it's very physically similar to Ankylosaurus, and I've already decided they should keep Sauropelta. Nigersaurus might go, leaving Amargasaurus as our one small sauropod. I could see Sunguripterus being cut, it's not that popular, and Leopleurodon might go despite being one of the most iconic marine reptiles. A lot of people don't like this Leopleurodon design, so it's another candidate for a redesign. Next is the ouch tier. The thought of these guys being cut makes me go, ouch. More so than the others, I think these are candidates for being resold to us in DLCs. My beautiful, colorful Australovenator in a sea of small carnivores, I could maybe see you being swept away from me. I love Segisaurus, but it doesn't offer anything too unique in the roster compared to the other small carnivores. Olorotitan might go, since we do have a few Hadrosaurs already locked in. Maybe Alamosaurus for the same reason. We've already got a decent few sauropods. I think Plesiosaurus and Attenborosaurus are in, so I could see Styxosaurus being dropped. Crichtonsaurus could maybe be cut and just leave Minmi as our small ankylosaurid, even though it does have the Crichton reference and is maybe the cutest species in Evolution 2. I know this is blasphemy, but I've tried to find that sweet spot of species we don't need but are well loved and would be exciting to get back. Obviously though, this is all very subjective, and I know every species I've listed here is somebody's favorite. It's bound to be. If they really play dirty, they could cut some animals with the very purposeful intention to sell them back to us. You know, animals they know will definitely buy back because we love them so much, kind of like Concavenator and Thanatos Dracon. I could see them cutting stuff like Gigantoraptor, or Shonisaurus is another one that would drive sales. Maybe Sinosauropteryx will be cut, or God forbid Eutyrannus or Utahraptor. If Utahraptor goes, I will be devastated, and I'm not even indulging in the idea of Deinocheirus being cut. I do think Frontier might be a bit cruel with their decisions and cut species they know we love, so that will definitely buy them back, because as I said, I feel like the species in the probably and maybe tiers aren't necessarily DLC worthy. I did say we'd talk about Chaos Theory, and that's because I think we'll get a Chaos Theory dinosaur pack with 4 dinosaurs. The only truly new species would be Beckel Spinax, but I think for the others, instead of just getting variants in the DLC, Frontier will use this as the point for us to completely rebuy these dinosaurs with their Chaos Theory variants as their new default. I'm of course referring to Pachyrhinosaurus, Majungasaurus, and Suchomimus. I would like to think the original variants would still be added, and this is true for all canon species. I think variants are definitely being kept, at least to an extent, since in the trailer we see a Jurassic World Pteranodon, but in the Clark County screenshot we see statues of what I think is the JP3 Pteranodon. I don't think variants are being totally cut, but I do honestly worry for the original Frontier variants that we've come to expect, like their Iguanodon and Giganotosaurus. Obviously, the original designs for Pachyrhinosaurus, Majungasaurus, and Suchomimus now fall into this category. We'll see, obviously it's kind of complicated, but yeah, I think maybe these Chaos Theory species have been cut from the base game to instead be sold to us in a dedicated DLC presented as their new canonized designs. Finally, we do have the 3 leftover hybrids, Ankylodocus, Stegoceratops, and Spinoraptor. Would they really resell them to us for a second time? I would hope not, since the response was so negative last time. Out of the 82 species confirmed, we know only 75 will be capable of breeding, so that's 7 that aren't. I've seen people point out we have a total of 7 hybrids in the final Evolution 2 roster, so maybe it's the 7 hybrids that won't breed, in which case these guys would make it in. Admittedly, it would be a bit weird for Spinoceratops to be in the base game, but not these guys. But I equally struggle to imagine all 7 hybrids being included, but not something like Utahraptor or Eutyrannus. People have suggested maybe some of the tiny animals won't have babies because they'd be minuscule, in which case the 7 might be a mix of hybrids and itty-bitty species. So I am suggesting that Ankylodocus, Stegoceratops, and Spinoraptor have been cut again, but more so than any of these other species, I'm hoping we just get them back in free updates, and we don't have to pay for them again. Those are the species that I suspect have maybe been cut from Evolution 3, and actually that was only 39. That's how hard it is for me. I literally cannot bring myself to come up with a full 46. Sorry if you feel robbed, but writing this video, I didn't set out to make a definitive list of 46. I just wanted to spitball some ideas, some very troubling ideas. To get up to that 46, I could see them cutting the Camp Cretaceous species, or maybe cutting into that JPOG list, and I do fear that Chunkingosaurus and Sauropelta aren't as safe as I'd like them to be. Which of these would you be most upset about? I have no evidence for any of this. Stuff like Deinonychus just makes sense to me, but for that ouch tier, I was really just throwing out options. This is a bit of a downer video because I decided to focus on what is, again, my one big concern with Evolution 3. I understand why it's happened, and I'm still super excited for this game. It's just something I wanted to talk about and speculate about. As I said, I expect to get most, if not all, of these animals back somehow, so eventually Evolution 3 should have that big, beautiful roster I've been dreaming of. Let's not forget about those confirmed new species, and so again, with these great designs for Guanlong and Protoceratops, I think any new additions are really promising. Let's try to stay positive about this game because Frontier has really listened to the community when it comes to new features, and it looks like they've made a worthy successor to Evolution 2. I have 2 Jurassic videos cooking in the background, one for the movie and one for this game, so definitely subscribe if you like hearing me talk about this franchise. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay excited for Jurassic World Evolution 3. Bye!